Hello and welcome to the Matchbook Horse Racing Podcast. Normal individuals in situ. You can see Micheál, Deasy and Sam Turner alongside. And it's a pleasure to welcome Chris Stickels, Clerk of the Course at Ascot, where the Matchbook Clarence House takes place this weekend. And Chris, welcome to the Matchbook Betting Podcast. Tell us everything we need to know, if you don't mind, about the ground this weekend, because you've had a bit of rain, it's fair to say.
Yes, we have. Yeah, we've had quite a lot of rain this week. We've had 31 millimetres since Sunday. In fact, 11 millimetres fell last night. So that then changed the ground to heavy. I changed that this morning. Obviously, there's quite a bit of moisture in the track. However, the majority of that rain is now finished. We might get the occasional shower today. No more really than a couple of maybe 3 millimetres forecast today. And then the forecast for tomorrow is we're seeing high pressure move in. So we're going to be colder, drier and brighter tomorrow. So I don't think it's going to get any wetter, but nevertheless, the ground's going to be pretty testing.
And if I can use the word tacky, because I never know when I should and shouldn't use it, but I suppose we all often associate it when you've had long periods of rain and then a bit of sun comes out. Is it a chance that it might make it that sort of gluey, tacky ground we often get?
I think it probably will. The track has had quite a bit of wear. We've had soft ground. We had soft ground in November. We had heavy ground in December, very testing conditions in December, when we had a couple of inspections and, racing was kind of in the balance at one point. So the ground has been fairly worn through this season. We've moved a lot of rail. We're on fresh ground where we can, albeit that it has been raced on, previously this year. And of course, so therefore that will make it, even tackier, and particularly when we've had a wet week and it's going to be drying again tomorrow. I think tacky would be a good description, tacky tarring ground.
Are we going to have heavy in the going description?
Yes, it's heavy at the moment. We may change it to heavy, soft in places. Certainly, I believe there'll be heavy ground, on at least half of the track. So that's my current feeling this morning. We may find that it'll soak through a bit better than that, but certainly heavy will be in the description, yes.
Is Tom gone?
I can't hear him now.
Yeah. Tom is over in Dubai and is having connectivity issues. So I'll just take over there, Chris. So obviously, Under Source Connections have been dreaming or have been praying for heavy ground. How heavy is it? Is it heavy in the straight? Because I think that from maybe the second last home, this is where the race is going to be run, and Deasy is very much a horse that has a bit of a burst of speed. How heavy is it going to be? Is it going to play to Under Source strengths, or will it be in favour of Deasy, do you think?
That's a good question. I mean, this morning it is heavy all over. The quickest draining part of the track would be from the third last right through to beyond the winning line. So, given the fact that we aren't going to see a huge amount more rain, if it was to go back to soft, that would be where it would be soft. In that from sort of 3 out, to the winning line. So, that isn't the most testing part of the track. And if it does soak through a bit more and is more drying, then that is the area that it'll be least testing. So, I can't really say yet. When I walked it first thing this morning, it had only just stopped raining. So, we may find ourselves in a situation where it's heavy, soft in places, and that soft place could be from 3 out.
Fantastic. And is there an inspection tomorrow morning or anything like that, or are you good to go now from today?
Absolutely. No, we're good to go from today. Assuming that forecast is correct, we have no worries at all. We're absolutely raceable now. And the forecast indicates, 2 or 3 millimetres at the most today and a dry day tomorrow. So there's no plans for an inspection.
Brilliant stuff. Sam, have you any questions for Chris?
Not really. I think you've covered it pretty well, Chris. It's going to be pretty attritional. Obviously, the runners, the runners in some of the races haven't really held up brilliantly, but still not too bad, are they? And we've still got some very competitive action. That handicap hurdle looks a decent affair with Thomas Darby and Ballymoy, last year's winner, and obviously Thomas Darby coming back from fences as well. So there's plenty of interest through the card, isn't there? And just traditionally, has this card thrown up many Cheltenham Festival winners? Would you know off the top of your head in previous years?
Well, the Clarence House, has always been, has always been a great race. Quite often the mares hurdle, that often throws up a good, clearly the mares go on and have won at Cheltenham as well. juvenile hurdle. I can't remember. It's a good juvenile hurdle. Gosh, and it's great to have the Gary Moore horse in there. So I think we have got quality, albeit slightly lacking in numbers. And let's be honest, that's quite common for this meeting. We often have testing conditions or and fields aren't huge, but I believe we've got good quality.
And is there any? If Undersow was to win tomorrow, is there any plans for a statue or perhaps naming a race after him, given that he'd have won 4 Clarence Houses?
Well, we haven't made any sort of firm plans on that yet. Let's just see what happens tomorrow. I wish him all the best, though. It'd be great for him to win 4. Yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. Cheers.
That's great. Thank you very much, Chris. And I suppose just to sign off, can you give us your best bet of the day tomorrow? What's going to get us off to a winning start?
Me? I would think that the Jessica Harrington send over Magic of Light again. To run in the mare's hurdle. She ran very well in it last year. She must have a good chance, I would think.
Brilliant stuff. Chris, thank you very much. And best of luck tomorrow. I hope it is a great day.
Thank you.
Cheers, Chris.
Thanks very much.
So Sam seems to do with me.
Then there were 2 follically challenged pundits, Deasy. Well done.
Aerodynamics, Sam, we prefer to go with aerodynamics. So, as we said earlier, Tom is over in Dubai and is having connectivity issues, so he might rejoin at some stage. But I think we're just going to crack on here now, Sam, myself, yourself. We'll start off with the race of the day, the Clarence House. The current bet now on Matchbook. Just let me bring it up here. So, Deasy is sitting proud at the top of the market at 1.847. Then you have Undersow at 2.46. Janica is 12.5. Captain is 23.0. And Maracuja is the big price, 40.0. So, Sam, I'll let you start the way. Who do you fancy in this?
Okay, well, I think, obviously, with it being an exchange podcast and whatever, I think we've got a decent trading opportunity here with Undersow, because I can't really envisage a scenario where he doesn't make the running here. You've obviously got Janica, Capeland and Maracuja in the race as well. We should pay them, honourable mentions. It would be difficult to envisage any of those trio winning. And you do wonder, given the connections, obviously Nichols, Skelton and Henderson as well, whether they're in there to sort of, just pick up some pieces late on perhaps and will be ridden conservatively. You would imagine that Deasy Desoy would be dropped in. And I wouldn't have thought that Barry would want to make the running with him, because he's a horse that sort of pulls himself up a little bit in front. So this looks, plain sailing for Undersow to get into a rhythm at the head of affairs and gives us a good trading opportunity, I think. In and around the 2.5 mark, I think it's very fair for a horse that's 2 from 2 round Ascot. He's 5 from 5 in January as well. So this is traditionally when the ground gets deep and conditions are attritional. This is when Undersow comes to the party. So I think there are plenty of positives for his chance. And as we know with Ascot, you see 1 or 2 horses like the Surnames and those sort of horses that Micheál get into a rhythm, jump cleanly, nick half a length at every fence. And Undersow, will probably fit into that criteria as well. I mean, he's an absolute legend of the game. At the age of 12, he's bidding to do what no horse has done in the last decade, and that's win a Grade 1 at that age. Monet's Garden, incidentally, at Ascot in 2010, was the last horse to manage to achieve that fact. So, he's obviously an unbelievable horse. I mean, he's won 3 Clarence Houses already, which is, I think, if he wins again on Saturday afternoon, that'll be, his cumulative total of 4 will match what Sprinter Sacra, Altior and Masterminded did between them. So that just tells you the legend of the horse that he is.
Yeah, he's an amazing horse. I mean, he's a local horse here from Cork. His connections just live out the road just from the office here. So I mean, we're all going to be rooting for him. And I heard an interesting thing there yesterday that I think that when Undersow won his first Ryanair when Deasy Desoy was a 2-year-old. He's been around for so long, and I think that maybe the conditions now tomorrow will play into his favour. And if you saw that Tingle Creek, it looked like Deasy was going to absolutely bury him, but he got up and got back to it in a neck at the line. And he's still rated 5 or 4 pounds higher in official ratings. I think that if it can't be heavy enough for him. And
that's another massive point, isn't it? That the conditions are really going to play to his strength. And Deasy Desoy, who's a bit of a speed horse, it might just blunt his turn of foot. I think he has a great chance tomorrow. It wouldn't be a huge betting race, but I think that at the prices Undersow is probably a good bet. He has been back during the week. I think as more rain came, prices
his price has tumbled. He was definitely up around the 3.0 mark at one stage, and 2.56 to 4, I think, is fair enough. But absolutely cracking race. So we're happy enough to go with Undersow on this.
Yeah, just one disappointment really, Deasy, that you haven't got your Undersow scarf on. I thought you would definitely have procured one of those for the podcast.
No, the orange doesn't go well with the red behind me. So
yeah, you're a slave to fashion, aren't you? Slave to fashion.
That's it, boy.
Right, where are we next?
We'll crack on, and we're going to go for the 115 in Ascot, the Matchbook Amateurs Rider Handicap Chase. So there's 6 runners in this. It's caught up fairly bad. I think I'll just lead off on that one. So the one I've come down on in this is Get on the Jaeger for Dan Skelton. I think he was the best period of his career was in kind of December, January 17-18, when he got completely bottomless ground, and he had 2 good wins. I was looking back through his form there today, and he beat like Ramsey's the Tay on heavy ground. He beat Wakanda. He got up as high as a mark of 140 at one stage. Hasn't really kicked on since. I know that this time last year at this meeting, he actually ran in the race that Surname won. He was a 50-1 shot. But he's back now again today. I think this is much calmer waters. He's down to a mark of 130, and I think he was fairly well back for the London National that void race. So I think maybe they might have got him back, and I think tomorrow he has a decent enough chance in what is quite a poor race, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the conditions have rendered this just a very modest amateur rider handicap chase. But look, it'll still be a thrill for these 6 lads who are going around and riding this race. One of the more experienced is Jack Andrews, and he sits on board who has a horse who hasn't got a lot of mileage on the clock, and that's Nearly Perfect. And his jumping was nearly perfect at Wincanton, but it was good enough to put away, 1 or 2 horses in that novice handicap chase there. I don't think the handicap has been too hard on him, just raising him 5. And I did like the ability to go through deep ground, which he showed at Uttoxeter. Any horse that goes through Uttoxeter heavy ground, is more than capable of sort of running through the trenches, basically. And he's a horse for me that I think there's plenty of improvement to come. The yard are starting to find winners again. They had a nicely backed horse of a bumper recently at Lingfield. I think I Hope Star landed a touch from there. So they are starting to emerge from a little bit of a quiet spell. So sort of I'll take a little bit of a chance with Nearly Perfect, but it wouldn't be a massive bet race for me.
It's grand. We've no prices for that yet, so we'll be nothing to update there, unfortunately. Right, we'll crack on with the next one. So the next one is the 225, the Matchbook Holloway's Handicap Hurdle. We have a bit of betting for this race here now. Just give me 2 seconds. I'll get the prices up here. And again, another race that has...
This is cut up quite badly. I think there was 22 entered at the 5-day stage, 22, 23, something like that.
Yeah, that was it, chat. So we have Pick Dory sits at the top of the market at 5.2. Then you have Song for Someone is 9.0. Thomas Darby is 10.5. Ballymoy is 11.0. And then you have, I'm not giving these in the right order. Ball Plan is in there at about 7.5. Soul Emotion is about 11.0. And Jolly's Cracked is in there about 10.0 as well.
Okay. Well, obviously, Pick Dory is the sort of the pivotal horse here, in that he's got some very, very smart form from his native France. Hasn't quite carried that forward since joining his new connections. He was obviously beaten 20 lengths in a Triumph Hurdle and then fell when he tried to win a Grade 1 in Auteuil in November. But I think this is much more his cup of tea. Obviously, his colours and his owners, they love to have winners around Ascot, obviously saying owners a surname and various other horses. And they'd rather prefer a winner at Ascot than Cheltenham Festival, to be honest. So he will have been targeted at this. He missed the Lanzarote last week and he comes here instead. So he's the horse, I think, that has been, purposely, I'd say, channeled towards this race and targeted at this race. So I think he'd be a tough one to beat. The conditions will be fine for him. Trip looks fine. And he's possibly one that could go and win something like this and then end up in a Betfair Hurdle. The Haydock winner, Bold Plan, has got a turn of foot for a 2.5 miler, which is a potent attribute to have. So I'll be worried about him. But I've had a little bit of interest anti-post in Thomas Darby, who returns to hurdles from fences. He finished second round here in his novice hurdle last year. Although he hasn't cut much ice over fences, he wasn't disgraced on his debut behind Maya Bonnery, the skeleton horse at Warwick. And she got on the bunny that day, and she was a difficult horse to try and reel in. But I thought he got within the length. That was a good run from a horse that was good enough to be a supreme novices hurdle runner-up. And then last time he just ran poorly at Kempton, just didn't get into any rhythm. And that's when the stables horses were very subdued and just off colour. So I think now they've had 6 or 7 winners in the last fortnight. He's going back to a track where he's already recorded a decent performance behind an Ascot specialist in some respects. Did they leave you out too? I think he's very much sort of top of my list is.
Very good, very good. Yeah, he's very interesting one where he's carrying top weight here as well. If he gets back to form, he has to have a massive chance. I've actually gone for a horse that is reverting to hurdles as well from chasing. That's Ballymoy, last year's winner. Remember on this podcast last year, I had a bit of an argument with Deadly Dan McLean about he tipped Ballymoy, I tipped Colonial Dreams, and they came first and second. But that was a lesson for me not to disagree with Dan.
Don't take on Tom.
Oh, here he is. Hello, Tom.
Oh, here he is. John Terry turns up late. Have you got the kit on?
This is exciting.
Yeah.
You're on the Holloway's handicap hurdle.
We're on the Hollows, and I'm just telling everyone about how Ballymoy is going to win tomorrow.
Listen, 12 months ago, Dees, he was a good thing, and it happened. And we're going in again. He was one of my top fancies on the card.
Yeah, and he's only £2 higher this year. Like, and he's obviously been disappointing over fences. He's been beaten 3 times at odds on. So maybe this is going to get him back in the winning groove. And I think he's an absolutely massive price. I think for what he has achieved over hurdles. I mean, he carried top weight in this last year and won fairly easily. So I think he's a nice bet in this.
The only thing I would say is we're 12 months on with a different horse, different form wise. So that would be my. He'd have to be a bigger price than he was last year. Would be the only thing to side with him.
Yeah. He's twice the price, isn't he? Which is more than fair, I think. And some of the horses that he's been running up against over fences, Nuba Negra, Windsor Avenue, Night in Dubai, they're not slouches. He's just the market has overreacted to what they perceive to be his ability, and it's been built in that he's expected to be a better chaser because that's what the connections have been quoted as saying. But it might be that he just isn't. Or it might be that he's going to run in this, and then they're going to try and sneak him into a handicap somewhere. So,
are all three of us on Ballymoy?
I've had 2 bets anti-post. Ballymoy is one of them, and the other one is Thomas Darby. Both of which have similar profiles, to be honest.
Yeah, I went to see Ollie Murphy on Monday. Who was very positive about Thomas Darby back over hurdles. He mentioned the ground 3 or 4 times would be the only thing.
Right, okay, that's interesting.
But I mean, obviously positive about him into a handicap back over hurdles. But yeah, and he made no mistake or no bones about the fact that he wanted decent ground last year. For all he ran well on soft in the Supreme.
Yeah, he did. I mean, he made a big thing of that he wasn't even going to run him, was he? And then they ended up running, and he finished second in the Supreme on bottomless ground or very deep ground. So I'll take that with a pinch of salt. But yeah, it's definitely an aspect of his chance worth hindering.
Can I play catch up then? Where did we go in the Matchbook Clarence House?
Underso.
I'm with you, and we haven't discussed it. I think he's a play. I honestly do think he's a play. Yeah. Good. We've done that. And as far as the, I didn't have a bet in the amateur riders chase, so we're through that. We're away from.
Right, Tom. I wouldn't worry about that one. There's better races on the day.
Just about. Dees, you keep leading it. I like it. Are we done here? Are you happy here?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah. We're going to move on to the 3 o'clock. So the handicap chase, the one that Surname announced himself to the world as the world's greatest chaser last year. It was a bit of a shock. We were actually there, Tom. I think everyone was a bit blown away by it. So I doubt there's a Surname in this.
I just described it as a bit of form that wouldn't hold up on the day to the box of matchbook people. That was spot on, wasn't it? Judge.
I know, but I doesn't look like there's any surnames in the field this year. So we have Espoir de Gay is the favourite at 5.0. And you have Happy Diva at 5.5. Domaine de Lille is you should be doing this, Tom. There's not a French horse, isn't this? Domaine de Lille is 7.5. You have Kill the Sartain is 8.5. Sam's Adventure is 9.0. Benny's King is 11.0. Flying Angel, Alison Montour are both 14.0, and it's big prices the rest. So I'll let you lead off, Tom, just in case you disappear again. Oh
How's
God,
it gone?
he's stuck in
Very
blue
well
steel.
timed, Deasy.
He's stuck in blue steel there now.
Oh, look at that look! That's the look where, you know, something's just got beaten a short head, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm
Or
just going
Spurs have conceded a late equaliser. That's
to
that look.
take a screenshot of that for him for when he goes back to his modelling career.
This is going well, isn't it? This.
Do you want to lead off on this, though, Sam?
Yeah, I won't spend too long on this. I think the market's got it right. Two horses that I think are the more obvious winners. Espoir de Guy, who's up a stone, admittedly, for that 10-length win. Another wide margin chase win at Ascot. It does happen quite a lot there. But he operated brilliantly in the heavy ground. Obviously a French recruit. And the one thing to take with a little bit of a pinch of salt is that Venetia Williams was winning with everything she was running leading up to Christmas. And they're a bit quieter since. Admittedly, it's sort of reversed back to the mean. But, you know, she has had a couple of winners. Penny Mallow, I think. Fontaine Collonges won a bumper at Ludlow when I was there. So at least they are starting to have winners again. And I just love the way he moved through the race. I fancied First Flow horse of Kim Bailey's and thought, you know, he was a good thing making all that day. But the way this thing sauntered up alongside it and went clear put my hopes in a bin very, very swiftly. So I think he's very much a progressive and informed chaser. He's already proven under the conditions, loves heavy ground, loves Ascot, travels well. I can't see why he won't be there and thereabouts. If he even off a stone higher mark, I still think he's got the ability and the quality to move through this race and be a massive player.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. I think it is between the top two in the market. I think that, well, although I have to say, no, I don't know too much about Domaine de Lille. I didn't look at him before this, but I think Kildesart might be carrying a bit too much weight and won't love the heavy ground. The other one I was looking at was Alison Montour. I thought he was an interesting entry. Been off now for nearly a year, but I think he's a nice horse. He's got some kind of, he's probably a bit of an unfashionable horse because he's trained by Richard Hobson. People might know that about him, but if you look, he runs in good races all the time. But the only thing is he's coming back from a year off on heavy ground, but he's going to be a nice double figure price. So I think that'll be the one I'll probably play, a small win bet and a nice place bet.
Yeah, I mean, the stable are in great form, aren't they? Lord de Micheál. They've got a number of other horses. I mean, they've got the old boy Valadon as well, who is struggling for a bit of form at the moment. But they're very, very good operator, Richard Hobson. I think he breaks and sells and buys and sells a lot of horses as well. So, you know, very, very good horseman. And you wouldn't be surprised to see Alison Montour, you know, on the back of that wind operation, perhaps, you know, with the tongue tie on and the pieces and everything. Run a race.
Exactly. I don't think he would be sending him out on ground like this if he wasn't fit.
No.
And he wasn't, because you could easily buy him the horse. He's 10 years old. He owes him nothing. So I like going for kind of older horses as well when the ground is heavy, because I think they're a bit stronger and older.
More mature, more robust. Yeah, I don't disagree. And just a quick line on Happy Diva as well. I mean, Kerry Lee's horses have come back into a good bit of form in the last week or two. You know, she's run some absolute blinding races this year. She's actually managed to get ahead in front in a Cheltenham Handicap, which is well deserved, and she ran really well behind Lady Buttons, who's the Doncaster specialist. Is she 3 from 3 or 4 from 4 on Town Moor, Lady Buttons? So the fact that Happy Diva needed her to put everything in to get past her in the closing stages that day at Donny suggests that Happy Diva's continuing in brilliant form, and those last two performances have been career best. So she's another one very much shortlisted.
Very good. So we're happy enough with that.
Happy with that.
That's the job. We'll drive on to the 405 so at Ascot. So this is the Matchbook British EBF National Hunt Novices Hurdle. It's a great tree. This was won last year by what was his name? Downtown Getaway. Got me out of a hole. I remember that. Absolutely sweating. And there was good horses running that last year. I think Champagne Wild came second. He won a champion first meet of the year. So this is a race worth following. So we've no prices for this at the moment, but I'm going to. I won't take a guess at them. I let you lead off there again, Sam.
I think Falco Blitz will be favourite just because it's Nicky Henderson. It's a race he's got quite a good tradition in. He's won it a couple of times in the last 4 years. Certainly with the horse that you mentioned, and Sam won it for him as well. And he's the highest rated by sort of £8 to £10 as well. So, well, £6 to £10. So he's He's also on my radar for a handicap at Cheltenham, but I just don't know which one yet. I wonder whether this is sort of the stepping stone where he goes and wins this race and then doesn't necessarily ruin his mark. Whether he'd end up in something like the boys' race, I don't know. Or whether, you know, I don't think he'd be rated high enough to get into a Coral Cup. But the boys' race might be the race for him. He's had a couple of looks round Cheltenham this year. You know, and he's obviously that Miller's Bank form from Fakenham looks really good now. He's absolutely obliterated that horse, and he was very, very impressive at Market Rasen last time. And I think he's got up into the late 130s, 140, something like that, Miller's Bank. So Falco Blitz off 132 still looks quite tightly handicapped, you know, once we move forward into the spring. And if he was to win this race and beat a 126 rated horse, for instance, by a couple of lengths, that wouldn't damage his mark too much. So he looks a shrewd piece of placing, and he's probably the answer to it.
Very good. I fancy that 126 horse you mentioned, Blackfinch, Stuart Edmonds horse. I thought he was. I was watching his race the last day because I had backed the favourite Keen On, and coming up the race, I thought I was in trouble because there was some amount of money came for Blackfinch. I think he was backed from something like 5.0 into just over 3.0. He was very, and he came to the last. I think he was tanking, and he just hit a bad jump. The jockey nearly fell off after it, and he just kept going. At the minute, it handed the race to Keen On. Keen On ran in the Ballymore trial last week at Warwick with absolutely no success. But I know that he's a horse that Nicky kind of thinks a lot of. I had Blackfinch in the tracker after that. I think that Stuart Edmonds again. I think he's a nice trainer. He's a nice under the radar trainer, and hear things about him that he makes all his own feed for the horses because he doesn't. He wants to get his little edge. I like hearing things like that about trainers when they're thinking a lot about it. He's going to be maybe second or third favourite. I think that Fostinovic maybe for the Tizzards as well. He might be. He's a big talking horse. He could be in there just on rep, maybe second favourite. So he might be getting a bit of a price from Blackfinch, and he would be my selection in the lucky last.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. No, I concur with everything you say about Stuart Edmonds. I think he's a very shrewd and capable trainer. Yeah. And that Fostinovic off the wind operation, there might be a little bit more to come. And obviously, Colin Tizzard's novices are in great form all season, pretty much. But yeah, it's a good little race, and it has thrown up nice horses in the past as well. You know, Vindication won it 2 years ago, so yeah. It's definitely one to keep an eye on for the future.
Beating Champ, I believe. Did he beat Champ that day?
He might well have done. Yeah, it's a great chat.
Yeah. This is actually it's a great meeting for. As I was looking at last year, like just besides Suriname, you have Downtown Gateway, you have Ballymore. Like, there was a lot of good horses ran and won it this last year. So it's definitely to keep an eye on. Right, that's Ascot done and dusted. So we will move north up the Haydock, where the ground will be even heavier, I'd say. Yeah. So we'll start off in the Supreme trial there. So just the 4 runners in this again, a race that caught up a lot, but. You have Edward Stone, Alan King's horse is sitting there at 3.0 at the top of the market. Then you have the Banner King Rebel, it's 4.5. Stone and Silver is 10.0. Brian Ellison's horse Snooker is there at 20.0. So I'll crack on with this. I think the Banner King Rebel is probably the best horse in the race, but he is £6 wrong with Edward Stone. Edward Stone is rated a pound higher than him, but he's getting £5 off him. Now, I think the Banner King Rebel actually has a course distance win on heavy ground, which I think is massive at Haydock. Yeah. So I think even though he's wrong at the weights, I think that out of the 4 of them, I would probably have a small bet on him at about 4.5.
I'll contradict you. Well, I won't contradict you. I'll take the other view that I think Edward Stone's the best horse in the race, but in the long term, I think he will possibly be the best horse in the race, but. I prefer the Banner King Rebel as well today. I'll tell you for why. Edward Stone has won a couple of races, I think, this year in spite of the way that he's raced. I think it's his raw ability that's got him through. He's very keen. He's quite exuberant. He's just taking a while just to settle down and become a proper racehorse. And the Hood is equipped for the first time, and I'll be hoping that actually just helps to pacify him a little bit, because he can be a bit free, he can be a bit keen. And the other side of the coin, the Banner King Rebel, bar one or two little errors at his hurdles, which has obviously cost him dearly at Wetherby, where he was too big at, he ploughed through the second last, as he did at Haydock last time, and then was too big at the last, overcompensated. He's not a natural hurdler, but I think the rigours of this race will be well suited for him. Deep ground, Haydock, where he's already performed, and he's just a tremendous galloper at 2 miles. He really does see the trip out very strongly. And if you watch him after in that last race, I know that the level of the horses in behind him probably wasn't top. So Edward Stone is going to be another level up on those horses. But just the way that he galloped them into submission, and Jamie Snowden was very keen to nominate this race as a possible target further down the line as well, which I like. So this has been the plan for 8 weeks, and I'm keen that, you know, he's also got that Haydock form, which, as we've seen in past years, can be worth its weight in gold. So I'm with you with the Banner King Rebel.
Happy days. I love agreeing with you, Sam. That makes things a lot easier for me tomorrow. Right, so we'll go into a proper Haydock race now. The Peter Marsh Handicap Chase over 3 miles, 2 furlongs on bottomless ground. And so I'll go from the top again now. So Harry Fry's Acting Lass is in there at 6.0. Then you have Prime Venture is in there at 8.5. Good old Definitely Red is in there at 9.0. Geronimo is 9.0. Midnight Tune is 10.0. Champers on Ice is 11.0. Vintage Clouds is 11.0. And it's big prices then for the rest of them.
Yeah, this is a difficult race, because my original thought for this race, horse of Ollie Murphy's, is a non-runner, unfortunately, and he was going to sit nicely at the bottom of the weights, Calypso Colonge, and I fancied him a bit. Yeah, I've ended up just going with the Haydock specialist, really, Vintage Clouds. It was also obviously second to Beware the Bear in that ultimate handicap chase at the festival. But every time he ships up at Aintree, when he's completed in about 10 starts, he's never been out of the 3. So he's 8-1. He's obviously third to Lord de Mesnil last time in the Tommy Whittle. That horse has gone on to win the last fling subsequently to give the form a bit of a boost. So I'll take the same form line as I was going to do with Calypso Colonge and stick with Vintage Clouds. He's 10 years of age. We know where we are with him, really. But look, he'll operate in the ground. He'll be fine round Haydock. And I think these races are very difficult to try and solve. And they bet 5 the field, and there's a number of old stages that we know and love, the likes of Definitely Red, etc. So it's whichever one really turns up and fancies it on the day and sort of gets into a rhythm early doors. And I think there's probably less downside round Haydock with Vintage Cloud, so I'll have a win and place bet on him at sort of 7 or 8.
Yeah, he's like, there's actually none of them you could actually completely rule out of this race, no. which is mad out of the 9 of them. I went for Red Indian. I think that he runs well fresh. He'll handle heavy ground. Doesn't have a lot of Haydock form, but I've backed him a few times because I think he's just a nice running horse, and he never really gets it done. But I mean, they thought enough from throwing him in the handicap chase at Cheltenham last year. Kelly Morgan, like, this is going to be his 7th run for Kelly Morgan, but I just think that he's going to be a massive price, and like you have the 8, you're going to be getting 3 places. If you're going to be getting him at about 20.0, 21.0, maybe a small win bet and a nice place bet. But this is a tough race. There's a few of the Vintage Clouds again is a great call. He'll definitely be there. And if Midnight Tune runs here, Midnight Tune is entering that mayor's race at Ascot as well. If Anthony Honeyball sends him up the Haydock, that could be a tip in itself. Okay, we'll go on to the last race. So the 3:15 at Haydock, one of my favourite horses of all time, is named after the new one, Handicap or the new one, Hurdle, Champion Hurdle Trials. So we just had the 4 runners in this again. Pentland Hills. I'll just get the prices up here now if I can get them.
Yeah, this is the race where we all kick ourselves when Ballyandy wins and we don't tip it, isn't it? Is this in the same colour? You might go to tip it, but I'm not. But he's the obvious coincidence bet, isn't he?
Yeah, this isn't. I don't think this is a race now. I'd be getting involved in Sam now, to be honest. This is so. Pentland Hills is about 2.5. Then you have Dorasso. The weight of the JP money is coming out this morning. He's a 4.5. Ballyandy then is at 6 point, or Cornerstone Land is 6.0, and Ballyandy is 6.0 as well. So,
yeah, I think the first thing you would imagine the Cornerstone Lad will make the running and have a little bit of a solo in front. Penton Hill's horse that was a bit keen and exuberant when we last saw him at Cheltenham on his comeback in the International. You imagine that Nico will do his best to try and anchor him in third or fourth. Ballyandy will sit fairly handy, and perhaps Durasso will just take a lead from Ballyandy and Cornerstone Lad. I'm going to take a little chance with Durasso. I think it's very interesting that sort of Joseph O'Brien sends him over for this. He has been quite well backed. I'm told that he'll improve for the run, but he's pretty straight. He obviously handles heavy ground very well. When he was with his former connections, I think it was Guy Chirel in France, he operated on heavy ground very well out there. He's certainly going to get a taste of that again at Haydock. And I just think with Penton Hills, he's just been overpriced for it. The market sort of overreacted to a very promising performance in the International, but he was still beating 5 lengths. He was still a bit keen. He's still got a little bit to learn. And I think also the fact that Joseph O'Brien was happy to take on Penton Hills last year with Fakir Duderie. So he'll have a little bit of a line as to what he needs Durasso to beat him. And I might be overthinking it a little bit, but at the prices with Penton Hills 2.2 and Durasso 4.5, I'm happy with Durasso. He's got a good record in heavy ground. He's got a good record in small fields, so he can quicken off modest pace. Obviously, Aidan Coleman takes over from Barry Geraghty, who struck up a good relationship with him last year at the turn of the year. But I think it's a chance worth taking. And obviously, Joseph, I think it's very intriguing that he's coming over with this horse anyway.
Yeah, and especially now that you're saying money has gone on the market, has only opened with 40 minutes, and he's been cutting price a good bit. I think for this race, the way I'd play this is I'd lay a Penton Hills, and you're getting, especially if he's going to be around even money about 2.0, you're getting even money in the field. I'm surprised Nicky is running him on heavy ground in Haydock. I think we know that he doesn't really like running his horses in extreme conditions. And there are other races probably between now and the festival where he get a run into him. But I think the way I'd be playing it is definitely laying him. I think Cornerstone Lad, he was famously tipped by Tom for the fighting fifth, and we backed him in the without market, not in the win market. But point, but I'm very interested to see how Durasso goes. But again, like as you said, Ballyandy could win this. Ballyandy is sitting there getting weight off everyone and a rock solid heart. So interesting.
That's probably the call, actually. Probably just to take a view that Penton Hills might beat himself, and at even money, you're happy enough to take a chance, and a small lay is a very sensible play, probably. That's
the beauty of the exchange. Sam, I think that's it. I think that's any other business. Do you fancy anything else tomorrow?
Not really. I'm sort of happy with those, really. What's your idea of the best bet of the day?
We'll do the best bets now. So I think for me, it has to be Magical Light in a race we didn't cover in the mayor's race at Ascot. I think that she should be different. No, she is giving weight away, but I think she should just be different class to all of these. So I'm going to stick with Magical Light, especially if you're going to get. She was around 4.0 yesterday. So if you can get 4.0, I think that's a cracking bet.
Okay, well, mine was going to be Thomas Darby, but obviously Tom's expressed a concern speaking to Ollie Murphy about the ground, so that's put me off that a little bit. I'll go with the Banner King Rebel. Look, it's either Undersow at 6-4, the Banner King Rebel at 6-4. They've probably got similar types of chances for me, really. They both look to have one to beat. So I'll go with Banner King Rebel. I think he just looks a brute of a horse at 2 miles, and a horse that stays very, very strongly as well. So he looks as though he's had this as his target for much of the last couple of months. And Edwardstone, they're putting the hood on, so there's one or two sort of things you don't know about how he's going to react to that really in a race situation. So the Banner King Rebel at sort of 2.5 for me. Great stuff.
Sam, thank you very much. So we got through the whole podcast without discussing how Man United beat Wolves during the week. We can
first time in 6 games since we got promoted, I think, is it? Well done. You needed VAR to do it as well, Deasy. So I wouldn't be boasting too much.
Yeah, this is our year. Sam.
Well, I have backed you for the cup actually, so I wouldn't mind you having a bit of an extended run.
Yeah, there we go. So,
Fingers crossed.
Only chance winning anything. Sam, thanks very much, boy. Best of luck, and thank you for everyone who's watching. Have a great weekend, and I hope you're back some winners.